Hi, everybody. It's Thursday, and it's time for your weekly dose of Future Law Bootcamp. I'm your host, Joe Borstein, CEO of LexFusion and total freak about legal innovation. Today, I'm here with a fantastic, kick-ass team of women lawyers and technologists from the groundbreaking firm Actuate and their technology subsidiary, quointec. On Future Law, the lawyers of tomorrow meet the change makers of today. And as always, we're going to discuss the tectonic forces bubbling under the surface of the $800 billion legal industry. Globalization is allowing lawyers and other professionals from all over the globe to work seamlessly on your work. Technology is automating routine processes and relentlessly crawling up the value chain and dabbling in more and more sophisticated legal tasks. And the status quo of legal regulation is being questioned and changed, allowing professionals outside of the bar to work alongside lawyers to solve problems at scale and also enjoy the profits of traditional legal work. Finally, outside investors and cash are pouring in. These investors see opportunities to make a broken system dramatically better. As futurist Peter Diamandis likes to say, if you want to make $1 billion, figure out how to help 1 billion people. That stuck with me because law affects every single solitary person on this planet. There are a lot of people to help, and there's a lot of business to do. So whatever drives you, idealism, greed, or even just excitement, I beg all lawyers to pay a little attention to the legal innovation space. You might just find your purpose here. So with that today, we are going to talk on Women's History Month, a month celebrating all things women, to an awesome team doing amazing groundbreaking work in both legal tech and innovation. They come from a unique firm company hybrid called Actuate Law, and their subsidiary, which is a company, quointec. First, let's start with you, Dara. Dara Tarkowski, the managing partner and co-founder of Actuate Law and chief innovation strategist at quointec. Tell me a little bit about this amazing, interesting setup you put together.
Well, first of all, hi, Joe. Thank you so much for hosting me and some of my team members for a really cool episode. So Actuate was born out of, I think, my partners and I spending many years, some frustrating years, sort of mired in the repetitive big law, same old for a long time. All started our careers there. I like to see we're sort of an island of misfit toys, big law refugees. But in 2018, we started Actuate with this crazy idea that we actually could build a better mousetrap, as trite as that saying may be, and provide really awesome services for our clients, but with a very, very heavy focus on really sort of changing up the model and putting a very heavy focus on not just innovative models like alternative fee arrangements and flat fees and all of that stuff that lawyers have been, repeating over and over and over again for years and years and years, but a massive focus on technology with the intention of, once the firm was off the ground, rolling out a true technology subsidiary to put our money where our mouths were about actually building products to help solve legal problems that we knew our clients were actually having. Really focused in the regulatory space and all sorts of highly regulated industry. But we weren't sure if anyone was going to like what we were doing back in 2018. So fast forward 3 years, and not only have our clients really embraced and appreciated it and honestly have been the truest supporters and lifeblood of our companies, plural, but also new people are taking notice of what we're doing. And that's been true both on the business development side and then in terms of the talent side. We've been really blessed that in 3 short years, we grew from 5 lawyers to now a combined, team of 24. Based in Chicago. Yeah, based in Chicago, and hopefully broadening our wings to South Florida next.
And how is that split between the law firm and the technology subsidiary?
So there's a lot of shared talent there. The technology subsidiary has at least 2 non-lawyers working within it, and then a lot of really talented development partners that we work with sort of on a contract basis, but they are our true partners. If we broadened our team out to that, it would be 50, 60. I couldn't even tell you how many people. But there is a lot of shared talent between the firm the subsidiary. And Loly Sosa is actually, who's on with us today, is a phenomenal example of that.
So I want to come back to a little bit to how the marketplace has embraced your model, but I'd like to move to Kristina for a minute. Kristina, like, going over your resume, it's fantastic. You know, Kirkland and MoFo alumni, Harvard law grad, litigator who teaches deposition practice. It's pretty clear from a quick glance, you could be doing this work anywhere. What attracted you to this unique model?
Thanks for that question. And I'm so excited to be able to be here and talk about that. I ended up in a city where my prior firms didn't have an office, and I chose not to go to a big firm here. And then my mid-sized firm got swallowed by a big firm. And it became apparent pretty quickly that I didn't want to be there. So I was looking around at what else I could do and got connected with Dara. And the environment and the opportunity and their business model was so different than anything I saw at any of the other law firms that were recruiting me. I could tell that they really were looking at what the client demand was and then figuring out how to meet that demand and how to provide the services that the clients needed, as opposed to the traditional big firm model of this is what we sell and let's bill you as much per hour as we can get out of you and treat our employees kind of poorly. It just seemed like such a, fast-paced and exciting and innovative environment that I wanted to be a part of it.
That's really exciting.
Kristina doesn't mince words, in case you didn't notice.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but it is something that comes up regularly in the legal tech community. This concept that if law firms did something differently, it would attract the best talent. And at the end of the day, all a law firm is a conglomeration of excellent talent. And it's nice to see that, happen in reality. So this is a kind of a question for anyone that wants to jump in. Technology in legal, I hope everyone agrees, is not replacing lawyers anytime soon. What it is doing is augmenting and extending and replicating their ability through things like automation, predictive coding, natural language processing, which allows smaller teams to work on bigger things than ever. Is this the era of boutiques?
So I could probably take up our entire session talking about why I think that that's the case. I know, not only do I think that, I know that, Actuate is living that, but I think it would be actually a great opportunity to hear from Loly, because as an associate at the firm, part of what made her such a unique and great fit for us was the fact that she so beautifully sits in both worlds. So I'd really, and someone who is, younger than me, and probably more of a true futurist than I am, particularly when it comes to law. I'd like to hear what she has to say about that.
So let me just give
Thanks,
the
Dara.
background on Loly. Loly is an associate with Actuate. She is a coder and also a Harvard law grad. So no slouches around here. But yeah, I'd love, Loly, to hear your vision. Is this the era of boutiques?
So
and I have other questions for you.
For background, I did write about this in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, for the Yale Journal on Law and Tech, on the automation of law. And one of the things that I came to realize as I was looking at the different models that were cropping up from 2016 to 2018 is that the teams that succeed are the teams that can be nimble. And it just so happens that when you have a bigger model, such as big law, you have a lot more stakeholders, decision makers, many of whom have been doing the same thing the same way for a very long time, and it's worked out well for them. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of this tech that we're suddenly seeing in the legal sphere isn't new. It just hasn't been implemented because of inertia. And so we're having a lot of folks that grew up with tech in their lives naturally, just seeing how it naturally applies into their day-to-day, especially in the legal field. So yeah, I definitely think it's the era of the boutique firm, because the boutique firm can nimbly make those decisions and can zero in on what the clients need much more quickly.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, of course, there's the old expression, it's hard to convince a room full of millionaires that their business model is broken. In my view, it's not broken. They're making, they truly are making millions of dollars. Doesn't mean there's not a better way, right? That is working.
So Joe, in the spirit of being true to myself,
yes,
it's not broken for them, but it's broken for a lot of people who work for them.
100%. That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So, and it's broken for the clients. They're getting a lot less value than they could. Yeah, you're right. If the metric is how well is this business serving my bottom line, it's serving it very well. And in the biggest, most hairy things in the world, there still is value in going to the great brand names of the world, if for no other reason than CYA of that brand name. But I think it's upstarts like yourselves that can completely change that paradigm. So Loly, can we stick with you for a second?
Sure.
So you guys do obviously both traditional practice of law at the highest level, but you also build product through quointec for your clients. How do you decide which of the many antiquated parts of legal you want to look to turn into technology, automation, or even just better process?
It takes a team of brilliant lawyers who can see beyond the way things have been done to see how they can be done. And so there are parts of the law that are objective, that, it's clear as day. There are many, many more parts that are subjective and that completely depend on who it is that's reviewing your argument, be it a regulator or a judge. And so the bottom line is, in order to be able to automate things for a client and to give them good value for what they have, is to have attorneys that are linked into it closely and know how to decipher that difference between those 2 points.
Yeah, that's great. And so one thing we talked about beforehand, there other people have tried the hybrid approach. Obviously, Atrium is a high profile example that got a lot of press. I wrote stories about them. I was rooting for them. Why has Actuate succeeded where Atrium and other similar models have failed? That's to Loly, but if anyone else wants to jump in on that too.
I can start off with the answer. I think there's a bit to say. I hate the word culture, but there's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of also just straight up legal thinking. The way that Dara came to this was, law first. We need to make sure we're getting the right thing for the client, not let's just innovate and see where we land. And so Dara has been very careful to make sure that what we're doing is important for the client, that it matches up to an actual need, as opposed to something that would just be cool to have. Another key point with Dara's team is that she's been very, I think she's been very careful to make sure that her team is diverse and has a lot of different types of perspectives coming in, so that we can make the best possible decisions once we're determining how to automate and where.
No, that's awesome.
Joe, do you mind if I like chime in for a half sec? So I appreciate and agree with what Loly shared, but I also think it's really important to emphasize that quointec is not an if we build it, they will come sort of company. We work really, really closely with our existing client bases in highly regulated industries, and we do an absolute ton of research and spend a lot of time with our clients talking about where they will find the most value. And only then if we see that there is going to be a true return and benefit to them, do we then invest the time and resources. Our most recent product, the ARM Communications Advisor, which was developed specifically for the accounts receivables management industry to automate the review of highly regulated communications that go between financial institutions and consumers. We built that literally alongside a client. We were getting client feedback on the tool through every step of development. We fronted the money for it, but we don't build things on an island because we're such brilliant lawyers and we think that we know everything that the client will want. We think that to proceed in that way is awfully foolish. So it really is always client driven, client first. And that's a huge priority for us.
Right. And technology obviously has come a long way such that when you see a client need, you're able to kind of quickly mock up partially technological solutions for them. Let's stick with that for a minute. Actually, we actually worked with you at my prior company, helped doing research that you wove into a low-code, no-code platform and made it a fantastic tool. How do you? There's now been a proliferation in that space. How do you choose kind of which platform to build on?
I think sometimes choosing what platform to build on may end up in the realization that you have to build it from scratch. For the first one, right, low code, no code sounds good. It's like so easy, even a lawyer can do it, right? Because lawyers are not generally viewed as technologically savvy people. I do think that when you're talking about, there's always like the business of law. That is not necessarily the same as the business of legal tech. When you're building products, like any other SaaS company or tech company, you've got to make sure you really truly understand what that business model is. And while a lot of these no-code, low-code platforms are really fantastic, you can get up and running really, really fast, the costs involved in the licenses and how the IP works and all of that, you may realize that depending on what it is you need to do, that may or may not be the best choice. So I would say for anyone, for any client, for any lawyer, for any legal tech, company that wants to do that, absolutely evaluate those things, but make sure you have your business plan for whatever you're building, like locked down. And if the more economic decision is to build it yourself, don't be afraid of that. Like, just don't be, because there's people who know how to do it.
No, that's awesome. So working at a firm like Actuate with its subsidiary quointec obviously creates a lot more potential ways to solve problems and a lot more freedom. I think, not to beat a dead horse, but COVID has also opened up a lot of doors and a lot of different ways that one can live their professional life. Kristina, I want to come back to you. We talked earlier a lot about what attracted you to the firm. How do you think the impact of COVID will impact both your firm now and the broader big law world as hopefully the virus goes away
someday, right? When it goes away. I think that
I had to move my bar right to my background because it was just so tough.
Times are tough. I think that the firms who have figured out how to work well remotely are going to do much better in the future, because a lot of people have not minded that part of COVID, not minded that we've cut the wasted time out of traffic and commuting and sort of, nonsense meetings, that we're actually doing this and it's working just fine. And I think I mentioned earlier, I'm in Indianapolis. Throughout COVID at my prior firm, felt a ton of pressure to be in the office, just ignoring that COVID was even happening. And I don't have particularly strong feelings about COVID, but that was particularly uncomfortable and difficult as a mom with 3 kids to balance, everything's canceled here and not there. For me, Actuate gives me the flexibility to really thrive in everything that I'm doing. I do teach as a law professor. I'm going to be teaching legal writing next year at IU McKinney. I can flex and it can sort of move around the different parts of my life. And at the same time, we're doing cutting edge work, cutting edge litigation. It's not sort of, it's not a step back at all. If anything, it's a step forward in the quality of the work, and we're able to do it in a flexible way that can allow someone like me, a Harvard lawyer in Indianapolis, to come on board and get involved.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Look, I could keep going all day, but I really want to thank you, Kristina, Loly, of course, Dara, for a fantastic talk. I think this is a great way to celebrate Women's History Month, and I am just so excited about what you're all going to do together, both on the technology and practice of law side. So thank you so much, and let's do this again in a year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us, Joe.
And thanks for Litera for having us. TV as always, always pushing the envelope of what we can do in legal tech. So thanks everybody. See you next week for Future Law Bootcamp.